Good morning, welcome to Ag Talk and Raw, where I talk raw about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. Well, the other things that are on my mind are actually doctors, pills, cures, treatments, things like that. Okay, I know there's a lot of old guys out there like me that have aches, pains, bruises, and are pretty well battered up from, everyday life. And, some are stubborn like me, and with good reason, and some just too quickly run off to the doctor. All right, so very sad story happened here about, 20 years ago. It's really odd that I cannot remember this man's name. I think his name was Brent. I'm pretty sure his name was Brent. My ex-wife, she was going to college back at this time. It was 20 years ago because she was going to college while she was pregnant for my daughter and before. But anyway, she's driving down Lamington Road in front of the one farm that I farm actually over there. But it wasn't farmed by me at that point, and I wasn't even thinking about getting that far out of the realm of what I do here. So anyway, she's going down the road, and how the hell did this happen? She's driving towards Route 78 to come home, and she passes a tractor, international tractor with a manure spreader behind it, because Brent was, I'm sure somebody remembers this story, but he was driving down the road with this manure spreader. He was spreading manure, and with that, a semi-truck passes. She passed a semi-truck going like 50 million miles per hour. Well, the semi-truck hit the tractor. Rear-ended the tractor. Tractor flipped over. He was unconscious when my wife turned around, and there was a van there that had been flipped over. Now, there was a woman in a van, and there was a child in the van. Now, the van was upside down. Child in the van was hanging upside down in the car seat. My ex-wife, she climbed through the window, unbuckled the baby, and this is before cell phones were really a big thing, but she had her cell phone, because I know she did because she had to have. This was in the 95. Timothy was little. She got her first cell phone in 95. So anyway, she unbuckles the baby. She calls 911. There's 3 or 4 people that have stopped to help. The tractor driver, unconscious, but he's still hanging onto the steering wheel. It's like he's locked in this death grip on the steering wheel. So anyway, you can imagine that he's a hurting pup. This is an open cab tractor too. It's like a 1456 or something like that. 1056, 1156, 1456 is what I think it was. So anyway, the concern wasn't for him at this point, because he wasn't moving. He wasn't pinned in anything. He was just unconscious, holding on to the steering wheel. The woman lost a leg. They ended up, by the time they got her cut out of the van, she had lost a leg. But the baby was fine. Kudos to car seats. A lot of people don't think that car seats are necessary. I think, and I have an opinion on this whole thing with the U.S. government and seatbelts. I have an opinion with seatbelts, cell phones, and things like that. So, and I'm going to touch on that right now. If you're an adult, 18 years or older, and you choose to not wear your seatbelt while driving your car, that should be perfectly fine. There should not be a fine for you driving down the road without wearing a seatbelt. Now, up to 18 years old, I think that it should be the parent's responsibility to make sure your child is buckled in safely. But of course, the government steps in and says, you must do this. So I'm okay with a law that protects the children, little kids up to, or children, minors, children, anybody below 18. But once you become 18 years old, you should be able to smoke cigarettes, drink beer, and drive your car without a seatbelt. and talk on the phone without a seatbelt. Hey, it's called personal responsibility. You take responsibility for what your actions are, and that's just the way it is. It's that way around the world. The United States has this fucked up idea that by generating revenue from adults that are making a conscious decision to talk on the phone while driving or not wear a seatbelt while driving is ridiculous. But anyways, back to the accident. Okay, so the woman, she loses her leg. I'm not sure if it was one or two. She loses her leg. And the tractor operator, who was in the mulch hay business before me, he was doing this a couple of years before me, and it was kind of interesting. So what had happened was a semi-truck driver was lost, and this was before GPS units, and he had a map. And he was reading the map, steering, driving, reading the map as he was going down the road. Not a good combination, boys and girls. Smacked into the ass of him. Anyways, he become conscious. He's really sore. I mean, he's beat up. This guy got the shit kicked out of him in that tractor. So he goes to the doctor, hospital, and they prescribe him pain medication. Pain medication is not the answer to what was wrong with him. So, anyways, he's on pain medication. Heavy doses of pain medication. He was a thin guy. Probably in his late 20s, early 30s. He was married, had a couple kids, and just a young farmer trying to make his way in the wilds of New Jersey, if there's such a thing. And what happened to him was probably one of the saddest stories you'll ever hear. So my wife, she goes to court to defend this man, and there's a full-on trial. The truck driver was on trial for this accident, responsible for his injuries and for his injuries and the loss of his tractor and his manure spreader and other things, because there was something with the insurance. I don't know. I'm not even 100% sure. It's been like 25 years ago. It's been longer than that. It's been a long time ago. So anyway, my ex-wife wasn't working at the college, or wasn't going to college at that time. This was before. She was just working there part-time. I think she had a boyfriend there. That's just my opinion, and I'm pretty sure I'm positive of that one. Because it made no sense that she was on that road to come home. But anyway, I was naive and young. So anyways, this poor fella, he takes pain medications, and during the trial, he was in a lot of pain. I remember him sitting up very straight. We had a conversation with him. We were talking with him in the courtroom before we went up there, and he says, "Man, my life sucks now." He says, "I can't even hardly walk." He says, "I have to take these pills, and they make me feel funny." And well, that was at the beginning of his addiction. He became addicted to these pills, and the pills stopped working. And from there, it was a downhill slide. Alcohol. When the doctor stopped prescribing him those pills, then he went into other things. So he ended up, his wife and him decided, we have to get away from the drug dealers here, the doctors, the drug dealers, all this stuff, and get you cleaned up. We're going to move to Virginia and live with my parents, or buy a place in Virginia, live next to my parents, so that our children have a place where they feel safe and they're not around, this drug-induced thing. So he goes down there. I guess he lost his house and everything because he couldn't work anymore. And this is just what drugs, pills, and doctors will do to you. I'm not saying that all doctors will do this to you, but, it happens all the fucking time. So anyways, he moves down to Virginia, and it wasn't long before he was at the doctor's office. It wasn't long before he was getting prescribed these massive amounts of pills, and he was drinking alcohol and synergizing the effects of the pills and the alcohol, and he was feeling no pain from anything or anyone. And his wife had had enough. She threw him out. She threw him out, kept the kids down in Virginia, and he moved back to New Jersey. Okay? So he's in New Jersey, can't work, or he was working a little bit, you know, between the pain medications, the alcohol, and everything else that he was doing. And anyways, one morning, his mom, because he had lost his home, he had no home. He was sleeping on his mom and dad's couch or bedroom, you know, maybe his childhood bedroom, I don't know. But anyway, his mom and dad came in and found him cold, dead in his bed. He had overdosed and died. So here you go. You got this young, vibrant man who got hurt at the hands of someone else, goes to a doctor because he needs help for his pain management to get it straightened out. The thing that I know about my back injury, and because I am 46 years old, I know my body pretty well. I can't go to a chiropractor right now. I will tense up like a stiff board, and a chiropractor will just say, "I can't do anything with you. You're too stiff. You're going to have to relax. You're going to have to heal a little bit." So I have to heal a little bit before I go to the bone bender. I don't feel any hitches or anything when I walk. It's just this deep, intense muscle pain and this rib and at my hip. So I'm not going for pain medications. I'll take a couple of Advils in the morning. I'll take an aspirin if I need it in the middle of the day. And I'll take a couple of Advils before I go to sleep. I'm doing okay. So that's just how that goes. I know scores of people that have gone to the doctor for simple pain and come out with severe problems. I cohabitated with a woman for many years that had pain, and online pharmacies. If you've ever heard of the Canadian Pharmacy, they'll call you up, tell you the guy's name is Rick from, "Hi, I'm Rick from Canadian Pharmacy." This guy is not from Canada. He's from India. And, you know, so she got hooked up with an online pharmacy. Next thing, we got boxes and boxes of medications coming. And and that's how that works. So, end of story. I can't deal with that. So, good people gone bad because of this stuff. I thought it was funny when, you know, it doesn't even matter. There's people I know that are just total train wrecks because of doctors. So, yeah. Only go if it's really necessary. I know that I would have gone if I was pissing blood, or if I had definitely seen a bone sticking out of my skin, or if there was something really weird going on. I had Teresa touch my skin, and that was what really hurt the worst, because of the nerve damage in the skin. And it will heal. It's just going to take time, like anything else. Eat good foods. Don't eat garbage. Don't go down and drink sodas and eat Twinkies and smoke cigarettes, because you'll never heal doing that. And Teresa touched it. She's like, "Oh, no, I don't feel anything weird. You're swollen," which I was. She wants me to rest. It hurts to lay in bed. That's the worst part about it. It does hurt for me to lay in bed, so I'd rather be out doing something else anyway. So I have to know my limitations, and like most people do, need to know their limitations before they go ahead and go back to work. And it's a tough, very fine line whether you're going to be able to. I got to do this here. I'm going to start to read comments here from my other video. So I did make another video on Sunday, but for some reason it refused to upload. You know, when it refuses to upload, there's something wrong with it somewhere within the computer, and I can't do anything. So yeah, but there's not too many comments on this. So, but anyways, that's just my thoughts on the on doctors and pain medications. Now, we took William to the doctor yesterday because it was his 4-month checkup. Yes, little William is 4 months old, and you can have different doctors tell you different things, and some things that doctors will tell you, you're like, what? And other things that a doctor will tell you, it's like, oh, well, that makes sense. Well, this doctor yesterday was about 20 years older than me. He had to be. Christ. I think he was 70-something. He was a doctor for 45 years. So I'm 46 years old. That would make him a doctor since 1973. And in order to become a doctor, Christ, this guy was pretty old. I think he's full of shit, to be honest with you. 35 years, not 45 years. There's no way that guy was a doctor for 45 years. He wasn't that old. But anyway, he might have been a nurse first. But, anyways, we had to do vaccinations. Now, the funny thing about vaccinations in children is that they want to bombard your child with vaccines. Just bombard them. When I was a kid, what did we have? Tetanus, polio, and I think the measles vaccine. Now there's vaccines from anything from a runny nose to anal seepage, for Christ's sake. And a lot of these vaccines, the side effects are worse than what the prevention is. And I'm going to give you a quick and lovely description about what happened to William, the first vaccine, the one vaccine that we had given him. So, this one vaccine was for rotavirus, okay? Never heard of rotavirus. Sounds mean and nasty. Sounds like it rotates your head off your body. You know, the rotavirus. So, rotavirus vaccine is an oral vaccine, and it's pretty easy to take. I'm not a fan of sticking my children with needles. When my sister was a kid, I broke her arm. Yep, I was the horse, she was the rider, and the ground was hard. Broke her arm, just like, and she was like, "Oh my God," and her arm bent backwards for a while. So they gave her Novocaine to numb the pain, to set the bone, and when the doctor gave her the Novocaine, he injected it into a vein. Not a little vein, not a capillary, but a vein. And the Novocaine went to her brain and caused a grand mal seizure, and she almost died. So, not a good doctor. He sucked. You got to aspirate the syringe before you just go and inject it. You know, and this is basic medical. I mean, we used to do this with cows, for Christ's sakes. Even if you shot them intermuscularly. And I remember one time going down the walkway that we had a cow had mastitis, and we had several of them. We had, you know, a little bit of mastitis going on, and we would shoot them with penicillin intermuscularly. Little high somatic cell. We knew who they were through the DHIA reports. So you go down the walkway, and if they had high somatic cell, you would just give them a shot of penicillin, not in the udder, not a dose that would show up in the milk, and you would just give them these shots. Well, I walked down across the barn giving these cows these shots. We had like 4 of them that were high. And for milk quality, you have to, you know, in order to get paid for milk quality, there's quality bonuses back in the day. I don't know if they still have this, but you want to get that somatic cell down below, I want to say it was 300,000 at that time. It was ridiculous, you know what you had to do to keep the somatic cell down. So, anyways, I'm going down through the walkway, and I'm walking back to the milk house where we kept the Procaine Penicillin G. It was just penicillin. It wasn't anything that was terrible, terrible. It was going to kill millions of people like they think it would. So, anyways, I get about halfway back down across the barn, and the cow flops over. Thunk! Over on her side, starts kicking like it's her last hurrah. Well, I'd given it to her intramuscularly, and apparently I had found a vein, and apparently that penicillin had gotten into that vein, shot into that vein, and into her brain, and she had a seizure, and she recovered. Took her about 10 minutes to actually stop shaking and carrying on, and she didn't die, which we were quite fortunate for that she didn't die. So I know firsthand you really should aspirate the syringe if you're going to be giving any animal, human being, or anything like that shots of any form of medication. Something as harmless as penicillin you wouldn't even think would cause a seizure like that. So, anyways, with William and his rotavirus vaccine, give it to him. Tastes like shit, I guess. She said it was sweet, but I didn't taste it. I don't want nothing to do with that crap. Give him the rotavirus. Anyways, he gets sick. He stops eating. He gets diarrhea. He starts throwing up. Does all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, holy shit. I wonder if that was a live vaccine that they gave him rotavirus. gave him rotavirus. I have no idea. I don't even know what rotavirus is. So rotavirus affects, I don't know, about 10,000 people worldwide every year. And of that 10,000 people that rotavirus affects worldwide, about 100 of them perish from dehydration. But never has anyone died in the United States from rotavirus. It didn't happen. Doesn't happen. So I'm like, so we just poisoned our son with this shit that has made him stop eating. His I don't know, his whole attitude changed, and he was sick from this rotavirus vaccine. So I Google it, and of course I find out that information. He had the symptoms of rotavirus from the rotavirus vaccine. So I told the doctor, no, we're not doing that again. Well, the doctor yesterday, he was like, well, I think that was just a coincidence. So the first doctor that gave us the said, hey, you got to have the rotavirus vaccine. This was like, oh yeah, no, we're just not going to do that. If you feel it's not necessary, we're not going to do it. So what makes these doctors want to give you these virus vaccines or these vaccines for these viruses is the state that you live in. So these are state and federal mandates for all of its citizenry to have these vaccines so that they don't become these, I don't know, germ factories or whatever. But for a virus that possibly could affect 10,000 people worldwide, how many billion people are in this world? I mean, such a small percentage of human beings on the planet, and they're vaccinating for this stuff. Here's one that'll bake your fucking noodle. Flu vaccine. They have this one, really. If you're getting the flu vaccine, you should stop right now. They have no idea what flu. There are thousands of strains of influenza, okay? Thousands of strains of influenza. So what they do is they poll people, and in this region, there's this flu vaccine. This flu strain has popped up, and in this region, a separate flu strain has popped up. And then you go up to the Northeast. You know, it's all on the East Coast, Central, and West Coast. They do this in these different blah blah areas. So they divide us into 3 regions, and they make a vaccine that may prevent up to 3 different strains of influenza, 3 of the most popular strains of influenza. So read the side effects of the influenza shot. I have a neighbor down the road here. She was a nurse. She got the influenza shot. She ended up with symptoms of multiple sclerosis from the influenza shot. So she says, the worst thing I ever did in my entire life was take that flu shot. She says, I was a nurse. It was mandatory that I took it. And there are thousands of people that have gotten the flu shot that still get the flu, because if it's not one of those 3 strains of influenza that you come in contact with, you're getting it. So suppose on the East Coast, these 3 strains of influenza are not the same 3 strains that are out on the West Coast of the United States, and I get on an airplane in New York, I fly to Los Angeles, and I have nice fun and sun in the beach, and then I go up to Northern California, and then I go down to the Baja of Mexico, and I come back to New York. I cough, and 25 people around me who have had the flu shot, who think they're invincible and, you know, can go right on down the street and be fine, they now have a strain of they've been infected with a strain of influenza that is not protected under their flu shot. So it's a big waste of time. Don't waste your time. They give this shit away for free. Well, not for free, but at the if pharmacies just give you flu shots, fuck it. Don't worry about it. How many people die of influenza a year? Usually very young or very old people. The side effects from these flu shots are way worse than the cure of it myself. I will never get a flu shot. If somebody sticks me with a needle and says, oh, haha, I gave you a flu shot, I'll grab that needle, I'll jam it in your fucking eyeball and break off the syringe in there, and then I'll go, haha, too bad about your poor eyesight. Yeah, don't fuck with me, assholes. I'm going to talk about natural selection now. And I'm sure there's people out there that will totally disagree with me because they either have a child with a birth defect, a child that would have died from a simple something, and there would probably be, I may not even be here. Pretty tough individual, but I may not even be here if it were not for flu vaccines, even though my family has never had any of those ailments or diseases. Polio. All these vaccines. If vaccines were never invented, vaccines and, say, antibiotics, the population would be more in check than it is today, and we would be a much, much healthier society. So, I know you people are going to say that I'm a heartless bastard over this, but that's okay. I'm willing to take it. So I watch TV, and I see television shows, these reality television shows, and there's mentally challenged people on there, and you have, which is fine, mentally challenged people, they happen. A lot of them may happen from vaccinations. We don't know. But they're people too, and they live their lives. But through modern medicine, their survival rate in this world is much higher. And then they get a TV show, and they couple of little people together, and then they make more little people, and then maybe those little people have more little people, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with little people. Don't get me wrong there. But you have people that have ailments that the natural selection would have taken them out. Boom, done. You know what? You are an inferior species. You are an inferior specimen in our species. You will not survive. Boom. The weaker dies, and then the strong survive. Correct? So with modern medicine, we have taken the natural selection side of it, and we have saved the weaker specimens in our species. Okay, so we are creating a weaker human race by modern medicine. Have a heart attack at 25 years old, you die, right? 100 years ago, you had a heart attack, you died. No problem, done. Whether it was if it was a genetic heart attack, from genetics, end of problem. The line ends there. But modern medicine, you have a heart attack, take a couple aspirins, you get to the hospital, they replace your valves, they make your, give you an exercise program, they make you stronger. You realize that your lifelong dream is to have a bunch of kids, and you find a wife who may or may not have had at some point in the last 100 years a relative that also had a genetic defect in their heart, and before you know it, you have created 2, 3, 4 little ticking time bombs that will be saved by medicine, and they will be able to go out into the world and breed and produce more weaker species by, intermingling with other people with maybe a lung disorder, a genetic lung disorder that is treated by modern medicine. So modern medicine is actually prolonging the lives of people that would normally have been naturally selected off the planet. The genetic defects are the natural way of making a stronger human race. I know my Uncle Irv, strong guy. Hey, he was a little guy, strong guy. Lived to 94 years old. He drank, he smoked, he chewed tobacco. He was a little guy, though. He was a short guy, and short people live longer than tall people, just so you know. So if you're extremely tall and overweight, you're going to die young. You're going to be somewhere around 65, 75 years old, and you're going to drop over dead if you make it that long, because your heart has to pump more blood farther, and it's just harder work in general. So, with that being said, genetic selection, you might have died off already. So anyways, Uncle Irv had a piece of steel in his finger. Just, right here in his middle finger. Actually, it was this part right here. So he didn't go to the doctor. What was the doctor going to do? There was no such thing as antibiotics at that time, and there also wasn't much in the way of a numbing drug like Novocaine, lidocaine, cocaine, morphine, that sort of stuff. Didn't have it. So he started to develop gangrene. You betcha, gangrene, big thing back in the day. So his father takes him down to the doctor. His hand looked like a balloon, If you've ever were a fan of Pink Floyd, my hands felt just like two balloons. Well, his hand apparently looked like a balloon. And the doctor said that finger has to come off, because if in a couple of days, it won't be his finger coming off, it'll be his entire hand. So he's like, well, okay, I guess. Now, mind you, this is in probably 1930, early 30s. He was a kid. The early 30s, maybe mid-30s. He was born in 1913. 1913. Let me see. 1913. No. 1917. He was born in 1917. Sorry about the brain fart. He was born in 1917. So yeah, about 1932, 1933, he had this problem. There was really no anesthesia, or, well, I think they had anesthesia pretty easy, but they didn't have any Novocaine. They cut that finger off while he was 100% awake with 100% feeling. They got him drunk. I know that because my Uncle Irv, tough guy, drank alcohol, lots of it. He wasn't an alcoholic by any means that I would think. I never thought that he was. I spent a lot of time with my Uncle Irv, and I miss him dearly. I wish I spent more time with him. That's my only regret when it comes to anything in my life. I have two regrets. But one was I wish I had spent more time with my Aunt Ella and Uncle Irv in the final days of their lives. But the reason I didn't was for the first regrets, and that was my ex-wife. So, with that being said, they cut that finger off. And over time, you could not tell that he was missing his middle finger. He had, 3 fingers and a thumb, and he did everything a normal human being would because he was a young man when they took that off. No pain medications after that. He said it was the worst goddamn thing he ever went through, but, he survived. He survived. So natural selection and modern medicine, I think in the next 50 to 100 years, you're going to see a cascading population. I mean, they're going to start to, I shouldn't say cascading, a collapsing population. You're going to have diseases that take such a strong hold in these people that have been genetically allowed to live by modern medicine, create more genetic problems, and then eventually modern medicine will not be able to overcome the obstacle, because just like anything else in this world, it's just a Band-Aid. I remember when Roundup was a big thing. Back in the 70s, Roundup was very expensive. And yes, I said the 1970s. Roundup has been around for a very long time. So Roundup back in the 1970s was a very expensive herbicide that nobody was able to afford to use. It only became cheap when everybody started using the genetically modified seeds and stuff. And Roundup has been a very useful tool. Well, what could possibly go wrong with Roundup, right? It's safe. You could drink it. Safer than dish soap, is what I was always told. And, we have now Roundup-resistant weeds. Big time. Roundup is laughed at by many weeds that it used to just take right out. It was no big deal. So, just like Roundup, being used in the farming world, of course, maybe some people think that Roundup is the death of the United States, like several people that I know think that Roundup is the end of the world. It's the worst thing that was ever devised and produced, and God knows what. I don't know. I personally don't know. I'm not a chemist, and I'm not a doctor. I do know that I handled a lot of Roundup, and I don't have a second dick growing on the side of my neck or anything. So I don't know. I don't know if Roundup is going to destroy us. I have no idea. But I do know that Roundup is an excellent example when it comes to what it used to do and what it did do versus what it is limited to do now. So, just like going to the doctors, when I started using Roundup, a half a pint to the acre killed everything. A half a pint to the acre, you killed everything. And that didn't even have the surfactants in it back then. You had to add surfactant. And then if you got smart, you added Arrow. Arrow was ammonium sulfate, sprayable ammonium sulfate in with that stuff. But then it worked twice as fast. So now you can put all the ammonium sulfate in you want with it. It comes with the surfactants already in it. You can spike it with crop oil to make it work a little better, but you still have those resistant weeds. You have weeds that do not die from Roundup anymore, that used to just easily die. So now, just like going to the doctor, you have people that, all right, let's use diabetes, okay? So diabetics, it's a genetic issue. It is brought on by diet, and it can be, and it is hereditary. So if you get a diabetic that eats Twinkies, drinks soda, and doesn't give a shit about anything, reproduce with another diabetic who they didn't know was a diabetic because they took care of themselves, and then the union comes together, and the one with the shitty eating habits that takes the insulin shot to keep them alive influences this one who now has shitty eating habits and now becomes a diabetic. Now they have offspring, and what do you think is going to happen? They're just like raging diabetics right out of the juvenile diabetes. Right out of the womb, they're on insulin, and, they keep them alive. They keep them alive. Eventually, the insulin's not going to work. I was in the pharmacy yesterday, and they have these things that just attach to your body, and it's a reader, and then you can check your blood sugar, like, daily. Eventually, that stuff is, I never knew anybody with diabetes when I was a kid. Now it's like I turn around, and everybody's got it. Like, oh, yeah, I'm diabetic. I got diabetes. Oh, really? What the hell? Where'd this come from? Why is it like this? Can we blame it all on Hostess and Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola? I don't know. But eventually, it's going to come back. It's going to bite us in the ass, and we are going to have a very weak. Well, what's going to happen first is you're going to see the life expectancy of people start to decline. We're still on. I don't know if we're stabilized yet. We're like at that, men live to 72 in the United States. Women live to, have an average life of 82 or whatever it is, usually about 10 years. I don't think it's 10 years anymore. I think it's like 6 or 7 years difference. But it's in the 70s. So men average 72, I think, and women like 75, 76. I haven't looked at it in a long time. But you're going to start to see that decline as the older generation dies off, which we're getting there. So the baby boomers, once the baby boomers die off, and they are dying off now, the baby boomers start to die off, and then you have my generation, Generation X. I think I'm a Gen Xer. Once this generation is the generation that was really the start of major vaccines, like we had more vaccines than my parents had. I think my parents had polio. I had measles, mumps, rubella, polio, and a tetanus, obviously. My dad had tetanus, too. My parents had tetanus. I think my grandmother's had tetanus. Maybe she hasn't. I don't know. If my Uncle Irv had tetanus, he may have not lost his finger. But, he was a tough old bird. So as these generations start to die off, now we're moving up through into the start of this weaker genetic interbreeding of human beings that would have normally died as a child or would have never been able to even reproduce at this point, that which through modern medicine now they survived. They are having children, and now their children are having children. My children are of childbearing age, they can have children. I'm 46 years old. Haley's 19. Not that I would want my daughter to have a baby at this time in her life, but Tim, he'll be 25. And if he had a girlfriend or a wife and he wanted to have a child, then he would. And he had a whole host of different vaccines. He's a pretty strong kid and doesn't ever get sick or anything. But, he may find a woman that is only on this earth due to modern medicine. So, suppose Timothy goes and he finds this beautiful woman that he wants to marry and have children with, and he does, but she's got anxiety, she's got diabetes, she's got, I don't know, whatever other genetic disorders that she could possibly have. And now you take Timothy, who has none that I know of, and he's got this girl, and he produces a child, which now carries on the traits of both of them, whether and maybe they're suppressed and they don't pop out until the next generation. But there is going to be a decline. There is going to be a crash, and the doctors and the politicians are all going to be like, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And the answer to that is to stop being so willy-nilly on these drugs. Just don't do it. I mean, if there's a child that's on his deathbed and the pill will keep them alive until maybe they're 35 years old because they have a heart defect that, don't give them that chance. I'm sorry. I am a father, and I would not want to have a child that was so impaired that he had to rely on his medications just to survive to the next day, go out into this world and create another child that would have maybe worse problems. But that's just me, because I'm a heartless bastard, I saw it in animals. I definitely saw it in animals. Genetics in dairy cows. They genetically bred the brains right out of a Holstein cow. By the time we were done milking cows, the Holstein heifer calves had no instinct to suck on their mother. Not at all. You take a beef cow, hell, they drop and you don't have to bother with them. But these damn Holsteins, I don't know about any other breed of dairy cow, but holy shit, dumber than boxer rocks. We just tube fed them. We tubed them until they were a week old, and then we would start them on a bottle, and then from a bottle to a bucket, and that was a whole nother trip. But they've been genetically bred to be milk producers. And this is another thing. And it's just like this with breeding plants, corn, soybeans, wheat, and they have parent crops, and then they create the hybrid, and that's what you get. Well, when you do that, you emphasize on what you want, but you take away something from somewhere else. So in a cow, we want milk. We want this animal to produce as much as possible because we're stupid. Because look at where milk price is. So we produce these animals, or we breed these animals to produce more milk for the increase in demand, what never happened because Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Sprite, 7-Up, and all these other soda companies, juice companies have way bigger budgets in advertising. And if you watch TV or even watch the computer, you will get 20 different drink commercials, and you'll never see one for milk. Even though the dairy farmers pay that milk marketing administration, those motherfuckers that just take your money and don't do anything with it other than line their pockets, drive BMWs, Mercedes, Audis, the Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and whatever the fuck they want to drive with the money that we give them. Well, we're out there with 30-year-old tractors trying to 30, 40, 50-year-old tractors to spread manure and scratch a living out of the dirt, and we're paying advertising. It's ridiculous, but whatever. Don't even get me started with all right. So we take an animal that was, 50 years ago, 40, let's say 25 years ago, even 25 years ago. A cow had a calf out in the field. No big deal. You went out. You didn't have to help her. She had a calf. Big deal. Calf got up. Mom licked it off because the mother had some instinct. Calf got up. Mom licks her off. Baby starts to eat. Done. We don't have to worry about it. You never had to worry about it. What was the problem? Say 10 years ago, cow's having a calf. Holy shit. Let's get her up. Let's get her in the barn. Got to get her in the barn. Hook the cables up. Pull the calf out because the cow can't push it out. They bred for bigger and bigger calves. So now we've got that problem. We're tearing cows up, pulling calves out of them because they can't have the calf on their own. And not always, but 90% of the time we were having these problems, even with calving ease bulls in these animals. We got so that we were breeding the heifers to a Jersey. We breed to a Jersey or even a little Black Angus. That made good meat too, by the way. But anyway, Jersey bred, Jersey Holstein crosses, they dropped pretty easy. And guess what? They would suck. But Holstein to Holstein, fucking dumb. They had no brain in their head. Nothing. Peas for brains. Marbles rattling around in their head. So, yes, they produced more milk. But to produce the more milk, they bred away their brain. They just bred away their brain. And again, these animals are actually even being bred for close quarters cohabitation with one another. Whereas these pastured animals, it was just so different. Everything is so different now, and I'm pretty sure if there's some dairymen out there watching me, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Unless I just got stupid at genetics. I mean, if we got stupid genetics, that would just blow my mind. I'm pretty sure it's a worldwide thing. But yeah, when I was a kid, 50 pounds per cow per day was like a really reachable, achievable goal. Now I think they're pushing for 80 or 90 pounds per cow per day. We did have some cows that produced over 100 pounds per day, back in the day, and those animals were, they had dragon milk is what I called it. Their udders got really big and later in their careers. But for the most part, I don't think they want the dairy cows in the barn for more than five years anyhow. And then they shoot them up with bovine somatotrophin or BST, and shoot them up with that stuff, which again reduces the need for a pituitary gland in those animals. And over time, the pituitary gland, over time in breeding, the pituitary gland will shrivel up and turn to nothing because BST, without BST, the pituitary gland has to work. With BST, the pituitary gland doesn't have to work. So what they're doing is they're shooting these cows up with BST, and they're milking them for a full year before they even attempt to breed them back. And they don't breed them back. They cycle them out, and then they go into another facility. It's just a totally different way of milking cows than the way we did it. We never used BST ever. We had a vet that said, well, you've got some of these cows here that are not really good producers. If you use BST, then you could bring your herd average up. Yeah, produce more milk, get less money for it. What's the point? It's like a dog chasing his tail. Eventually, the dog catches its tail, and what does it have? It's got its own tail. Nothing. There's nothing. A dog has nothing. It yelps and then lets go and continues to chase its tail again. So, yeah. Maybe people will think I'm fucking nuts here, but that's okay. I can be told I'm fucking nuts. It's all right. I kind of know the way this stuff works. I'm old enough to know. And, yeah, hopefully you gain some knowledge out of this thing. As to way genetics kind of work, and I'm not college educated, but I'm pretty observant, and yeah, it's like, okay, here, chronic wasting disease in deer. Okay, not every deer dies from chronic wasting disease. They don't. Some of them suffer and suffer and suffer, and then they recover a little bit, enough to produce an offspring. So now, when they produce the offspring, those genetic codes in their makeup gets passed to the fawn, which that fawn may carry chronic wasting disease, but it is unaffected by it. Maybe it's affected a little bit by it, but by the third or fourth generation from those animals, they no longer have they have a tolerance to chronic wasting, or CWD, chronic wasting disease. Now, there's some people that I know, Cotton Top 3. He goes to some deer farm down in where is he? Mississippi, Alabama, Mississippi, or some shit like that. Down there, there's this deer farm, and they imported semen, whitetail buck semen from up here on the East Coast. Well, they had CWD down there, or some other form of chronic something disease, and when they bred the animals to this semen from up here, they got it and they died because there's no tolerance up here. You bet. That's the way it works. That's the way it works. So there you go. That's the long and the short of it. Yeah, it's all genetics, all breeding. Doctors will kill you before they cure you. They don't treat the problem. They treat the symptoms, by the way. So if I go to the doctor and I say, hey, man, my back is really fucking killing me. I don't know what the hell to do with it. They could take an x-ray and say, well, you've got We're not really sure, so we'll just give you this pain medication. It'll go away. It'll heal. Not really, because if you give me pain medication, I'm going to feel like Superman. Yep, I'm going to be super. I'm going to get up, like, wow, I don't feel nothing. Boom, go off to work and hurt myself even worse. I would rather feel the pain, work through the pain, know my limitations, and allow it to heal up. Yeah, it's going to heal slower because I'm working, but at least I won't not feel the pain and go and lift up poles and posts and engine blocks and bags of whatever and, do what I do, and then come home at night and then, oh my God, I can't move, give me the pills. And then before you know it, I'm addicted. And I'm not going to do that. So I've yammered on for 50 minutes. Can you fucking believe this? This is crazy. But I guess if you're a farmer and you're watching this and you know what I'm talking about, or you're addicted to those pills because you continue to hurt yourself because of the pills, and that's what gets me, is I know that I can work through pain. I've done it before. And I don't have any weird effects from working through pain because I knew what my limits were. It hurt. I didn't do it. If I would have gone to the doctor, took those pain medication, and watched those boys put those tires on that 8530, I would have been right in there beating and banging and pulling on bars on pain medication, and then probably been put into the hospital the next day for more pain medication. So I'll leave you on that note. Thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe for more.